What happens when a man has everything? A billion-dollar company, a penthouse overlooking Manhattan, and a beautiful, quiet wife. William Thorne had it all. But he made one fatal mistake. He believed his wife, Phoebe, was just another one of his possessions. He ignored her, belittled her, and flaunted his power, blind to the secret she carried. He never once asked about her family. He never considered who she was. He was about to find out. And the price for his ignorance wouldn't just be his marriage. It would be his entire empire. The penthouse on the 80th floor of 157 wasn't a home. It was a statement. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed Manhattan like a captive masterpiece. The furniture was minimalist, chosen by an expensive interior designer, and held the warmth of an ice sculpture. This was William Thorne's world. He was the CEO and founder of Auratech, a name synonymous with predictive AI and ruthless market domination. At 38, he was the king of a digital empire he had built from nothing, and in this glass tower lived Phoebe. To William, Phoebe was the perfect wife. She was beautiful in a quiet, unassuming way, like a rare book no one else knew how to read. She was gentle, spoke softly, and most importantly, she never made demands. She was the calm, elegant backdrop to his explosive, high-stakes life. He had met her at a small gallery opening 2 years ago. She'd been introduced as Phoebe, just Phoebe. He found her simplicity refreshing. She was an artist who painted abstract landscapes, a hobby he found quaint. He married her because she was the only person in his life who didn't seem to want anything from him. He was tragically mistaken. "The board is panicking," William snapped, loosening the $800 silk tie from his neck and throwing it onto a marble console. He didn't look at Phoebe, who was curled on a vast white sofa, reading a hardcover book. "Is it about the Helios proposal?" Phoebe asked, her voice soft. William finally glanced at her, his blue eyes sharp and dismissive. "What would you know about the Helios proposal?" "I read the financial summaries you left on the table," she said simply, not rising to his bait. "It seems aggressive." "Aggressive?" He barked a short, humorless laugh. "Aggressive doesn't begin to cover it, Phoebe. They're trying to bleed me dry. It's a coordinated short-sell attack masked as a merger. They're sharks, and they smell blood." He paced the length of the window, his reflection marching alongside him. "I need to focus. I'm having dinner with the board members tonight. Don't wait up." "William," she said, placing a silk ribbon to mark her page. "You haven't had dinner at home in 3 weeks. We were supposed to attend the hospital benefit tonight. I laid out your tuxedo." He stopped pacing and glared at her. It was the look that made his executives tremble. "A hospital benefit? Are you serious? My company is under attack. My entire net worth is on the line. And you're worried about canapes and shaking hands with old money dinosaurs. Grow up." Phoebe's face remained perfectly neutral, but her hands tightened on her book. "It's the Children's Wing benefit, William. You pledged the keynote speech. They're counting on that donation." "Let them count," he retorted. "Send them a check. Send them 10 checks. That's your job, isn't it? Manage the home life?" He gestured vaguely around the sterile, multi-million-dollar room. "Handle it." He turned and walked into his master suite, the door clicking shut with definitive, cold finality. Phoebe sat in the silence, the skyline of New York blinking mockingly at her. She heard the shower turn on, the sounds of him preparing for his next battle. She closed her book. She hadn't been reading it. She pulled her phone from her pocket, a simple, nondescript model that looked years out of date. She opened a secure messaging app with no name, just a black icon. There was one contact in it, identified only by a single chess piece, the king. She typed a message. Phoebe, he's dismissive. He doesn't see it coming. He values nothing but the company. A reply came back almost instantly. King, the validation is complete. We've seen enough. Are you certain, my dear? This is the final move. Once we start, it cannot be undone. Phoebe looked at the closed bedroom door. She thought of the past 2 years, the lonely dinners, the casual cruelty, the way he looked through her as if she were made of glass, the way he had scoffed. What would you know? She typed her reply. Phoebe. He called a children's hospital. Benefit, canapes with dinosaurs. Proceed as planned. It's time he learned what aggressive really means. She deleted the thread, powered down the phone, and placed it back in her purse. She stood up and walked to the closet, not to look at his tuxedo, but to pick out her own outfit. It was time to get dressed for a very different kind of war. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in corporate warfare. Oratech, once the darling of the Nasdaq, was hemorrhaging. The attack was surgical. First, an anonymous report was leaked to the Wall Street Journal, questioning the validity of Oratech's key patent, the very soul of their predictive AI. The stock dipped 15% before the opening bell. William was a caged lion. He was on the phone 24/7, his voice raw from screaming at his legal team. Find the source. I want them buried. I want their families buried. This is libel. But the attack was just beginning. The entity that had made the initial Helios proposal now revealed itself to be Helios Dynamics, a shadowy private equity firm with impossibly deep pockets. They initiated a hostile takeover bid, offering a laughably low price per share that simultaneously insulted William and signaled to the market that Oratech was wounded. He's not eating, Phoebe said, quietly into her burner phone, standing on the penthouse terrace, the wind whipping her hair. He hasn't slept in what looks like 48 hours. He's furious. He thinks he can fight this. Let him. The voice on the other end, her father's voice, was calm as a frozen lake. Pride is the anesthetic that dulls the pain of a fatal wound. The second phase begins tomorrow. We'll target his board. The next day, 2 of William's most loyal board members, men he'd golfed with for a decade, abruptly resigned. They had been visited by representatives of Helios Dynamics and shown something that made them liquidate their stock options and run for the hills. Traitors! William roared, smashing a crystal glass against the wall of his home office. Phoebe flinched, not at the sound, but at the predictability of it all. William, you need to rest, she said, standing in the doorway. You're burning yourself out. Maybe you should consider the offer. You could still walk away with billions. He spun around, to his face a mask of rage and exhaustion. Walk away. Walk away. This is my company. I built it from a garage. You don't walk away from your life. What is wrong with you? Why are you so calm? This is your life too. This penthouse, your clothes, your ridiculous art. It's all funded by that company. Show some damn concern. I am concerned, William, Phoebe said, her voice chillingly steady. I'm concerned you've surrounded yourself with people who only tell you what you want to hear. I'm concerned you've forgotten how to listen. Listen to what? He sneered. Listen to you. You want to give me painting tips? Or should I ask your family for advice? Oh, that's right. You never talk about them. What did your father do? Was he a postman? A baker? I bet he was a good, simple man. I bet he'd be terrified by all this. It's too big for you, Phoebe. Just go to a spa. Go buy a new purse. Let the men handle this. He turned back to his desk, dismissing her. Phoebe stood in the doorway for a full minute. A postman. A baker. She thought of her father, the man Forbes had nicknamed the alchemist before he'd vanished from public life, the man who regularly had presidents and prime ministers on a private line. "You're right, William," she said, so softly he barely heard it. "This is too big for me. I'll go buy a purse." She left him in his office, a king reigning over a crumbling castle. She went to her room, but not to shop. She pulled out a fresh set of clothes, not the soft cashmere sweaters William liked, but a sharp, black sheath dress and stiletto heels. She had a meeting to attend. She met her father's COO, a man named Julian, at a private lounge in the Baccarat Hotel. Julian was technically the CEO of Helios Dynamics. "He's arrogant to the last, Miss Vance," Julian reported, handing her a tablet. "He's trying to secure a counterloan from Morgan Stanley, but we've already tied up that line of credit. He's trapped. He just doesn't know it yet." "Good," Phoebe said, her eyes scanning the data. "He's holding an emergency shareholder meeting on Friday to try and rally support. He's going to fail. I want you to leak to Bloomberg that a mystery bidder has emerged, one with a much higher valuation. It'll cause a panic sell-off of the remaining loyalists who think they can cash out before Helios takes over." Julian nodded, impressed. "Your father said you had a keen mind for this. He wasn't exaggerating." "My father taught me to play chess," Phoebe said, sipping her water. "William only knows how to knock the pieces off the table. Let him. We'll be the only ones left to put them back." William Thorne was drowning, and he was trying to drag the whole world down with him. The Bloomberg leak had been a catastrophe. His remaining shareholders were in open revolt. His stock was in freefall. He had one last card to play: perception. The annual Titans of Tech Gala was in 2 days. It was the most exclusive, high-profile event in the industry. "I have to go," he announced to Phoebe, pacing the living room. His suit was rumpled, his hair unkempt. "I have to show them I'm not beaten. I have to project strength." "That's a bad idea, William," Phoebe said, not looking up from her laptop. She was managing the logistics of her father's arrival in New York. "You look terrible. They'll see the desperation on you." "I have to go," he yelled, "and you are coming with me. You will put on your most expensive dress, you will smile, and you will look like you adore me. No one can suspect there are problems. Not at work, and not at home." Phoebe's fingers paused on the keyboard. "You want me to be an accessory?" "I need you to be my wife," he shot back. "Is that too much to ask?" Phoebe looked at him, truly looked at him. The arrogance was still there, but it was brittle now, like a thin sheet of ice over a dark, deep ocean of fear. "No, William," she said, closing the laptop. "It's not too much to ask. I'll be there." The night of the gala, the ballroom at the Met was dripping with diamonds and tech royalty. William, fueled by a dangerous mix of adrenaline and 2 beta blockers, plastered a wide, false smile on his face. He schmoozed, he shook hands, he laughed too loudly. Phoebe was a perfect statue by his side, elegant in a simple, dark emerald gown. She was, as he'd requested, smiling, but her eyes were cold, watchful. The trouble started near the champagne fountain. Isabella Vance, William's ambitious and cruel chief operating officer, cornered them. Isabella had long made her disdain for Phoebe clear, and her romantic ambitions for William even clearer. "William, darling, you look exhausted," Isabella purred, sliding her hand up his arm. She was wearing a blinding red dress. She completely ignored Phoebe. "We need to talk about the emergency meeting. I have a new strategy." "Not now, Isabella," William said, trying to pull his arm away. He needed to look like a stable husband. Isabella's eyes flickered to Phoebe with pure venom. "Oh, of course. You're playing the devoted husband. It's a shame your wife doesn't seem to understand the stakes. She looks like she's at a funeral." I'm sure Phoebe is just tired, William said dismissively, eager to move on. Or maybe she's just out of her depth, Isabella said, her voice loud enough for the people nearby to hear. I mean, really, Phoebe, what do you do all day? Paint your little pictures? It must be so stressful managing the household staff. Tell me, do you even understand what a hostile takeover is? Phoebe met her gaze. I understand it's what happens when a company's leadership becomes complacent and over-leveraged. Isabella's smile faltered for a second, surprised by the articulate response, but she recovered quickly. Oh, she reads. How cute. She turned to William. Honestly, William, I don't know how you do it. Running an empire and then coming home to this. Such a burden. And then, in a move of calculated malice, Isabella tripped, sloshing the entire contents of her champagne flute all over the front of Phoebe's emerald dress. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Oh my goodness! Isabella shrieked, pressing a hand to her mouth in mock horror. I am so clumsy. Look at that. It's completely ruined. Then again, she whispered, leaning in close. It was a rather simple dress, wasn't it? Don't worry, I'm sure William can buy you a new one. The entire circle was silent, watching. This was Phoebe's breaking point. This was the moment William, her husband, would finally step in and defend her. Phoebe looked at William. His face was white with fury. He grabbed Phoebe by the elbow, his fingers digging into her skin like claws. He dragged her away from the crowd, hissing into her ear. Are you happy? He seethed, his voice a low, vicious rasp. You embarrassed me. You just stood there and let her do that. You made me look weak. Why do you always have to be so useless? Can't you do one thing right? Phoebe stopped dead, pulling her arm from his grasp. The pain in her elbow was nothing compared to the cold, hard clarity that settled over her. She looked at the man she had tried to love, the man she had given 2 years of her life to. He hadn't defended her. He had blamed her. He had called her the embarrassment. You're right, William, she said, her voice devoid of all emotion. I am done embarrassing you. Good. Go to the ladies' room, clean yourself up, and get back out here. We're not leaving until I've spoken to the Chen brothers. No, Phoebe said. William blinked. What? No, I'm not cleaning myself up. I'm not getting back out here. I'm leaving. Don't be dramatic, Phoebe. You, she corrected, have a gala to attend. I have a phone call to make. She turned and walked. Not toward the restrooms, but straight toward the grand marble staircase, her head held high, the dark stain of champagne like a badge of honor on her dress. Phoebe! Get back here! Phoebe! William hissed, afraid to cause a bigger scene. She didn't look back. She walked out of the Met, into the cool night air, and got into the first taxi she saw. The king in the ballroom had just made his final, fatal move. The Queen had left the board. The taxi ride back to the penthouse was silent. Phoebe didn't cry. She was long past tears. She was in the cold, calm, productive stage of rage. When she arrived, the penthouse felt different. It was no longer her gilded cage. It was just a place she was visiting. She walked straight past the $1 million art and the sterile white furniture and went into her dressing room. She didn't pack her clothes. Her father's staff would retrieve those later. She packed a small go-bag she'd had hidden for 6 months, her burner phone, a set of encrypted hard drives, a passport with her real name on it, Phoebe Vance, and a single photograph of her and her mother taken years ago at their home in Lake Como. She walked into William's home office, the place he'd called her useless. She sat in his $10,000 ergonomic chair and turned on her burner phone. She made the call. It was 11:30 p.m. Her father picked up on the first ring. Arthur Vance, His voice was deep, cultured, and held the unmistakable authority of a man who owned islands. "Dad," Phoebe said. There was a pause. The shift in her tone was all he needed. "What did he do?" Arthur asked. The calm in his voice was terrifying. It was the calm of a hurricane's eye. "He let his COO humiliate me. He let her pour champagne on me in front of hundreds of people. And then he blamed me. He called me useless. He said I embarrassed him." Silence. The line crackled faintly. "Julian," Arthur said, speaking to someone in the room with him, "liquidate the remainder of the B-Round fund. I want all assets converted to cash by 1 a.m., New York time. Scorch the earth. I don't care what it costs." He came back to Phoebe. "Are you out of the house?" "I'm in his office," Phoebe said. "Leave. Now. A car is waiting for you at the service entrance. It will take you to the Carlyle. Your security team is on the 40th floor. I will be in New York in 6 hours." "Dad, the board meeting is Friday," Phoebe said. "That's 36 hours from now." "No," Arthur said. "The board meeting is tomorrow at 9 a.m. He just doesn't know it yet. Julian is triggering the emergency acceleration clause in our acquisition contract. William Thorne's reign as CEO will be over before he's had his morning coffee." "Good," Phoebe said, a single hot tear finally tracing a path down her cheek. She wiped it away angrily. "I'm on my way." "Phoebe," her father said, his voice softening for just a fraction of a second, "you did well. You gave him a chance. He failed. Now you will do what you were trained to do. You will end this, and you will show him exactly who you are." "I will," she said. "I'll see you in the morning, Dad." She hung up, wiped the phone, and dropped it into a glass of water on William's desk, short-circuiting it completely. She took one last look around the penthouse. It already felt like a stranger's home. William stumbled in at 2 a.m., drunk and furious. "Phoebe!" he bellowed. Silence. "Phoebe!" He stalked through the penthouse. Her closet was full. Her studio was untouched. He frowned. She was probably staying with one of her art friends. Fine, let her sulk. He had bigger problems. His phone buzzed. It was an email from his legal counsel. It was time-stamped 2:01 a.m. Subject: urgent. Emergency notice of accelerated vote. "William, I don't know how this is possible. Helios Dynamics has just invoked a key man risk clause in their last filing, citing your erratic public behavior, the gala, no doubt, and the resignation of the board members. They've consolidated a 51% voting majority by buying out the remaining institutional investors in a private, after-hours block trade. They've called an emergency meeting. It's not on Friday. It's tomorrow, 9 a.m. at our headquarters. William, they have the votes. They're not coming to negotiate. They're coming to take the company. Be ready." William dropped the phone. The blood drained from his face. 51%. It was over. He had lost. In a single night, while he was drinking champagne and yelling at his wife, he had lost everything. He sank to the floor, the skyline of his city mocking him. "No, no, no, no," he called Isabella. "Isabella, they took it. They got 51%. "What?" Isabella's sleepy voice turned sharp. "How? Who? Who has that kind of liquid capital?" "I don't know," William cried, his voice breaking. "Helios. It's all Helios. We have to be there. 9 a.m. We'll fight them." "William," Isabella said, her voice suddenly cold as steel. "There is no we. You're on your own. I'm not tying my career to a sinking ship." The line went dead. William sat alone in the dark, a billionaire with nothing. He didn't even notice his wife was gone. The 9 a.m. meeting at the Auratech headquarters was less a meeting and more a funeral. The 50th floor boardroom was tense. The remaining shell-shocked board members, those who hadn't already resigned, were present. William Thorne sat at the head of the table, a position he clearly wouldn't hold for much longer. He looked like a ghost. He wore the same suit from the gala, now hopelessly wrinkled. He hadn't slept. He hadn't showered. Isabella Vance was there, seated as far from William as possible, already looking like she was interviewing for her next job. She was furiously texting, likely to recruiters, trying to spin this disaster. "Where are they?" one board member, a man named Robert, muttered, checking his watch. It was 9:02 a.m. "This is a disgrace," William said, his voice a hoarse whisper. "To be clear, I will be fighting this hostile, predatory action with every legal tool at my disposal. This is a theft, plain and simple." "You have no legal tools, William," Isabella said icily, not looking up from her phone. "You're leveraged to the hilt. You are the key man risk. You did this to yourself." Before William could retort, the grand double doors of the boardroom swung open. It wasn't a team of lawyers from Helios Dynamics. It was one man. He was in his late 60s, with a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, a shock of silver hair, and eyes so sharp they could cut diamonds. He radiated an aura of power so immense it seemed to suck the oxygen from the room. The board members who had been whispering fell silent. William didn't recognize him. "Who the hell are you? This is a private meeting. Security." The man smiled, a thin, dangerous expression. "Security reports to me now, Mr. Thorne." He walked to the head of the table, placing a slim leather briefcase down. Robert, the board member, suddenly gasped, his face going pale. "My God, I don't believe it. You're Arthur Vance, aren't you?" The name hung in the air. Arthur Vance, the alchemist, the reclusive, legendary multi-billionaire who had built and sold 3 separate tech empires before disappearing from public view a decade ago. He was a myth, a ghost who was rumored to pull the strings of the global economy from a private island. Isabella Vance's head snapped up from her phone, her eyes wide with a mix of awe and terror. She shared his name, but she was a different, inferior species entirely. "I am," Arthur said simply. "I apologize for my lateness. I was finalizing the transfer. As of 8:51 a.m. this morning, I, through my holding company, Helios Dynamics, am the sole majority owner of Auratech. This meeting is a formality. I am here to announce the dissolution of the current board." The room was in stunned silence. William looked like he'd been shot. "Vance? Arthur Vance? But why? Why Auratech? It's small time for you. Why this company? Why me?" Arthur Vance held his gaze. His smile was gone. "It was never about the company, Mr. Thorne. Auratech is a rounding error on my balance sheet. It was a useful asset to acquire, but that wasn't the reason. No. This was a family matter." William was completely lost. "Family? I don't know you." "No," Arthur agreed. "You don't. You were so busy building your little empire, you never bothered to ask, did you?" "Ask what?" William pleaded, his voice cracking. The boardroom doors opened again. In walked Phoebe. She was not the simple, quiet wife from the penthouse. This woman was transformed. She wore a bespoke, dark, navy blue power suit that was clearly worth more than a car. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek, severe chignon. Her makeup was flawless and severe. She wore stiletto heels that clicked with authority on the marble floor. She looked like the woman who owned the building, not the woman who was kept in it. She walked calmly to Arthur Vance's side. William stared, his jaw slack. "Phoebe! What? What are you doing here? I told you. Get out! I've lost everything. You can't be here." Isabella looked at Phoebe, then at Arthur Vance, then back at Phoebe. The shared name, Vance slammed into her like a freight train. "Oh, no," Isabella whispered, her face turning sheet white. "It's not possible." Phoebe looked at her husband. Her eyes were not sad or angry. They were the eyes of a CEO looking at a failed investment. "Hello, William," she said, her voice clear and carrying across the room. William pointed a trembling finger from Phoebe to Arthur. "You... Vance... Phoebe... What is this?" Arthur Vance placed a protective, proud hand on Phoebe's shoulder. "Mr. Thorne," Arthur announced to the room, "allow me to formally introduce my daughter, Phoebe Vance. The real reason we are all here today." The silence that fell over the boardroom was absolute. It was the sound of careers ending, of a paradigm shifting, of a man's entire reality being detonated in a single moment. William Thorne's face cycled through a spectrum of disbelief, confusion, and dawning, abject horror. He looked at Phoebe, his quiet, simple artist wife, and then at Arthur Vance, the most powerful and ruthless businessman on the planet. The pieces, all the little moments, began to click into place with sickening clarity. What would you know about the Helios proposal? Was your father a postman? A baker? You're embarrassing me. Daughter? William choked out the word. She's... your... daughter? She is, Arthur said, his voice dripping with contempt. The heir to my entire estate, the sharpest mind I have ever had the pleasure of teaching. A woman who, for reasons I still struggle to understand, wanted to see if she could be loved for herself, and not for the Vance name. She chose you, Mr. Thorne. She chose to give you her time, her loyalty, and her quiet, brilliant support. He took a step forward, his gaze sweeping over William's disheveled form. And you thought she was an ornament. You ignored her. You belittled her. You dismissed her insights which I assure you would have saved this company a dozen times over. You treated my daughter, like a household servant. William turned his desperate, pleading eyes to Phoebe. "Phoebe, please, I didn't know. Why didn't you tell me? We can fix this. I love you." Phoebe laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. It was sharp, brittle, and utterly devoid of humor. "Love?" she said. "You don't love me, William. You loved my silence. You loved that I was uncomplicated. You loved that I never challenged your fragile, massive ego. You loved that I was a mirror that only reflected what you wanted to see. But you made a mistake. You thought I was a mirror, but I was a one-way glass, and my father and I were on the other side, watching you, taking notes, and waiting for you to show us who you truly were." She stepped forward, taking her place at the head of the table. William was still in the chair, but he seemed to have shrunk. "The Helios proposal," Phoebe continued, her voice resonating with cold authority. "That was my 2-year anniversary gift to you. I drafted the initial terms. I was testing you, to see if you'd see the genius in the, admittedly aggressive, merger strategy. I thought, maybe this will get him to see me, to see my mind. But you just scoffed and threw the file on the floor." "The leaked patent report?" she went on, ticking points off on her fingers. "That came from my father's R&D archives. That patent was a copy of his work from 1998. You didn't build Aurotech from nothing, William. You built it on a foundation you stole during your time as an intern at Vance Industries 20 years ago. You just didn't know who you stole it from." William went paler than the marble table. That's a lie." "Is it?" Arthur cut in. "We have the original server logs, the theft, the gala, the verbal abuse. It all just made this final decision so much easier." Phoebe's eyes flicked to Isabella, who looked like she was about to be physically ill. Isabella, Phoebe said. Miss Vance, Isabella stammered. I had no idea. What I said, what I did, it was a joke. I've always admired you. You spilled champagne on me, Phoebe said flatly. You called me a burden. You actively and repeatedly tried to sabotage my marriage. Please, I'll do anything. I'm a valuable asset to this company. Phoebe looked at her. No. You're a sycophant, and worse, you're a sloppy one. Your services are no longer required. Security will escort you from the building. Your personal effects will be mailed to you. You have 5 minutes. 2 large men in black suits, who had been standing by the door, moved in and flanked Isabella. This way, ma'am. Isabella, tears of rage and humiliation streaming down her face, was marched out of the room. Phoebe then turned her attention back to the man she'd married. William, she said. Phoebe. Baby. Please, he whimpered. He actually slid from his chair onto his knees, crawling toward her. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I was stressed. I didn't mean it. I'll change. We can run the company together. Father and daughter, and son. We can be a family. Phoebe looked down at him, at this broken, pathetic man at her feet. There was no pity in her eyes, only judgment. You don't get it, do you? She said. This isn't a negotiation. This is a termination. You were my last and greatest failed project. She looked at her father. Dad? Arthur Vance smiled. He's all yours, my dear. Phoebe looked back at William. William Thorne, she announced, as the new acting chairwoman of the board and CEO of this company. My first official act is to accept your resignation. Effective immediately. I don't resign, he shrieked. It wasn't a request, Phoebe said. You're fired. For cause. Gross negligence. Patent theft. And, frankly, for being a spectacular idiot. Security, she called out. The same 2 men re-entered the room. Get your hands off me. William scrambled to his feet. This is my company. My name is on the wall. Not anymore, Arthur said. The holding company is already filing for a name change. I believe my daughter is partial to Vance Thorne Industries. William froze. Vance? Thorne? Phoebe smiled. Yes, I'm keeping your name on it. Just so every time you see it, every time you read about my successes, you remember exactly what you had, and exactly what you threw away. The security guards grabbed William by the arms. He was a billionaire one day, and in 24 hours he was a man being forcibly ejected from his own life. You won't get away with this, he screamed as they dragged him toward the door. Phoebe, I love you. Phoebe, you're nothing without me. You're nothing. The doors closed, cutting off his desperate, hollow shouts. The echo of the boardroom doors slamming shut on William's final, desperate cry. You're nothing, was devoured by the thick carpeting and the oppressive, stunned silence. The remaining board members, 6 men and 1 woman, who had all, in their own way, benefited from William's aggressive leadership, now sat frozen. They were captives, witnesses to an execution, and unsure if they were next. They stared at Phoebe as if she had just pulled off a mask to reveal an entirely different face, which, in every way that mattered, she had. Phoebe Vance stood perfectly still for a long moment, her back to the room. She was looking out the floor-to-ceiling window at the panoramic view of Central Park. It was the same view William had coveted, the one he'd used as a backdrop for his power. But to her it was just a map, a territory to be managed. She breathed in, slowly. The fabric of her navy blue suit felt like armor. For 2 years she had worn soft cashmere, silks, and cottons, the fabrics of a quiet, unassuming wife. This suit, a custom-tailored piece from her father's tailor in London, was stiff, sharp, and purposeful. It felt like home. She was no longer a reflection in William's glass tower. She was the tower. Finally, she turned. Her heels made no sound as she walked to the head of the table. Her table. William's chair was still pushed back, askew from his pathetic, kneeling plea. She ignored it, standing at the head, placing her palms flat on the gleaming mahogany. "Well," she said, her voice clear, calm, and cutting through the tension like a surgeon's scalpel. "That was theatrical." Arthur Vance, leaning against a side wall, chuckled. "You have a flair for it, my dear. Your mother always did love the theatre." She would have been exceptionally proud. "Though," he added, a twinkle in his eye, "she would have insisted you wear a better dress to the gala." A small, genuine smile touched Phoebe's lips, a sight so unexpected it made the board flinch. She would have, and she would have hated that shade of champagne. The smile vanished as quickly as it came. Phoebe's gaze swept across the pale faces at the table. "Ladies, gentlemen, let's be clear. Aura Tech, as you knew it, is dead. It was a house of cards built on a stolen patent, fueled by the ego of a man who believed his own press. It was, to be frank, an embarrassment." Robert, the board member who had first recognized Arthur, found his voice. "Ms. Vance, the company is fundamentally strong. The AI, the predictive models, the market share." "The market share," Phoebe interrupted, her voice dangerously soft, "was bought with unsustainable high-risk leverage. The AI is 20 years old, and the predictive models failed to predict this." She gestured to the empty chair. "So, no, Robert. The company is not strong. It's a hollow shell. But it has good bones, and my father and I are prepared to invest $20 billion to put real, innovative flesh on them." A collective gasp. 20 billion. That was more than the entire current valuation of the company. "This company," Phoebe continued, "will be restructured and integrated into the Vance Industries main portfolio, effective today. Which brings us to you." She began to pace, slowly, behind the row of chairs. "You all have two options. Option 1, you tender your resignations, effective immediately. Your stock options, which as of my father's acquisition are now worth triple what they were yesterday, will be vested in full. You can walk away very, very wealthy and quiet men and women. I will consider it a fair price for your silence and cooperation." She stopped behind a portly man named David. "Option 2, you stay. But if you stay, you no longer work for William Thorne. You work for me, and my standards are not his. I do not want yes men. I do not want sycophants. William surrounded himself with mirrors. I am hiring architects. I demand brutal honesty, ruthless efficiency, and absolute loyalty. You will be expected to work twice as hard as you ever did for him. You will be building a real empire, not a fantasy, and I will fire anyone who cannot keep up. Am I clear?" Robert stood up so fast his chair nearly toppled. "Ms. Vance," he said, his voice firm, I apologize. I apologize for not recognizing your talent, your presence. I worked under your father briefly in the 90s. If your leadership is half of what his was, it would be an honor to serve under you. I am at your disposal." Phoebe looked at him, her gaze analytical. "Thank you, Robert. I remember my father mentioning you. He said you were a decent financial mind, but lacked a spine. I'm glad to see you seem to have found one. Be in my office at 1 p.m. for a full strategy session, and bring your actual ideas this time, not the ones William always shouted down." Robert nodded, his face a mixture of shock and pride. "Yes, Chairwoman." "David," she said, still standing behind the other man. "David, sweating, scrambled to his feet. "Yes, Miss Vance, absolutely. Whatever you need. I've always said this company needed a new direction. Always. I think your vision is just brilliant. Truly." Phoebe stared at him, her face impassive. "David, you told William I was a lovely, simple creature at the Christmas party last year. You are a mirror. And I just said, I'm hiring architects. You have 1 hour to clear your desk. Take option 1. You're dismissed." David's face crumpled. "But, Miss Vance, please." "Security will show you out," she said, turning away. "To the rest of the board, 1 p.m., my office. Be prepared to defend your jobs. Now, get out." They fled. The room was quiet again. Arthur pushed off the wall, walking to his daughter. He placed his hands on her shoulders, his expression uncharacteristically soft. "Phoebe," he said. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine, Dad," she said, though she leaned into his touch for a fraction of a second. 2 years, he said, his voice a low rumble of residual anger. 2 years you let him disrespect you. When you first proposed this test of his, I thought you were insane. To hide who you are, to let a man like that." Phoebe stepped back, her composure locking back into place. "I had to know, Dad. I had to know if it was possible for someone to see me. Not the Vance name, not the inheritance, just Phoebe. I gave him every chance. I supported him. I gave him quiet advice, which he ignored. I tried to be the perfect supportive wife." "He didn't deserve it," Arthur said. "No, he didn't," Phoebe agreed. "But he gave me a gift. He gave me the certainty that I was right. He wasn't just blind. He was willfully ignorant. He didn't want a partner. He wanted a pretty, silent possession. He failed the test, Dad. Miserably." She walked to the door of what was now her office. William's name was already being scraped off the frosted glass by a workman. "Now," she said, "let's get to work." She had just sat down behind the massive, obnoxiously large desk when her new assistant, a sharp, efficient woman named Grace, who had been on her father's payroll for years, buzzed. "Ms. Vance, I have the press release ready for your approval. The design team is in the lobby to discuss the office refit, and there's a problem. The press release can wait an hour. The design team can wait 2. What's the problem?" Phoebe said. "It's Mr. Thorne, Ma'am. He's in the lobby. He's causing a significant scene, refusing to leave. He's demanding to see his wife." Phoebe sighed. A loose end. "Put the lobby security feed on my monitor. Sound on." A screen flickered to life. There he was. William. His suit was torn where the guards had grabbed him. His hair was wild. He was weeping, fat, ugly tears streaming down his face. "You don't know who I am," he was screaming at a stoic security guard. "I built this building. I am Auratech. You let me up. I need to see my wife. Phoebe, Phoebe, they're hurting me." It was pathetic. Phoebe felt a flicker of something. It wasn't pity. It was disgust. The same disgust she'd feel looking at a spoiled piece of fruit. As she watched, her old personal cell phone, the one she'd had as Phoebe Thorne, began to vibrate on the desk. She looked at it. She looked at her father. Arthur raised an eyebrow. Phoebe pressed the speakerphone button. "Hello, William." His voice, a desperate, hysterical sob, filled the room. "Phoebe. Oh my God, baby. Thank God. You have to help me. They won't let me up. These animals, they threw me out. Tell them who I am." "I think they know exactly who you are, William," Phoebe said, her voice as cold as the glass in front of her. "You're a man who's trespassing." No, stop this. This isn't you. It was your father. He did this, didn't he? He tricked us. He turned you against me. Phoebe, it's our company, Ours. We can fight him together. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about the gala. I'm sorry about everything. I love you. Just come down here and fix this." "There's nothing to fix, William," Phoebe said. "It was never ours. It was yours, built on a lie. And now, it's mine." The sobbing stopped. A new, familiar tone replaced it. The cold, snarling rage she'd heard in the penthouse. You bitch," he seethed. "You did this. You planned this. All of it. You trapped me. You were playing me this whole time. You're nothing. You're just like him. You're a cold, empty, soulless—" Phoebe pressed the end call button. She held her finger on his contact name and pressed block. She then buzzed her assistant. "Grace." "Yes, Miss Vance." "Send a personal check from my account for $10,000 down to the lobby. Have security give it to Mr. Thorne." Arthur smiled. Generous. "And a note," Phoebe continued. "The note should read, 'For your services. Consider it a severance. Do not contact me or any member of my family again. All future correspondence will be from my lawyers.'" "Yes, ma'am. And Grace? Have him formally trespassed, permanently. If he steps foot on this property again, he is to be arrested on sight." "Understood, Miss Vance." The line clicked off. Phoebe turned back to the monitor. She watched as a security supervisor approached William, handed him the check and the small note. She watched him read it. She watched his face contort in a final, agonizing mask of pure, impotent fury. He crumpled the check and threw it, but one of the guards calmly picked it up and stuffed it into William's suit pocket. Then they guided him, firmly, out the revolving doors and onto the sidewalk. A king, now a jester, banished from his own court. Phoebe switched off the monitor. "That," Arthur said, "was exceptionally cold, Phoebe. The 10,000, a beautiful touch." "It's what I paid for an abstract painting last week," Phoebe said, pulling a stack of files toward her. The artist was terrible. It felt appropriate. A transactional fee for a transactional man. She looked at her father. "He'll tell this story for the rest of his life. But he'll tell it as if he was blindsided by a corporate shark. He'll never, ever understand. He wasn't destroyed by a billionaire. He was destroyed by a marriage he was too arrogant to be present in." The intercom buzzed again. "Miss Vance, the board is assembled for the 1 p.m. meeting." Phoebe stood, smoothing her suit jacket. She looked at her father. "Coming?" Arthur Vance smiled, a true, proud smile. "I wouldn't miss it for the world, chairwoman." Phoebe walked out of the office, the click of her heels on the marble floor the only sound. The king was dead. Long live the queen. In the end, William Thorne wasn't a victim of a corporate takeover. He was a victim of his own ego. He had a diamond in his house, and he treated it like common glass. He was so busy looking at the skyline, at his own reflection in the windows, that he never bothered to look at the brilliant, powerful woman sitting right next to him. Phoebe didn't just take his company. She took back her life, her name, and her power, proving that the quietest person in the room is often the most dangerous. This story is a powerful reminder. Never underestimate anyone. The person you ignore today might just be the one signing your termination papers tomorrow. What did you think of Phoebe's revenge? Was it justified? Let us know in the comments below. If you loved this story of karma and dramatic justice, please hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to see this, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel for more real-life drama stories every single week. We read all your comments, so thank you for your support.